Hey everyone, Chris Carter here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. The Steelers schedule's been released. I'll go over the good, bad, and the ugly about the schedule and why it looks like there's another gauntlet coming at the end of the season. All here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Let's get into it.
You are Locked On Steelers, your daily Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter, bringing you your daily dose of all things in the Pittsburgh Steelers. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it. Subscribe to this YouTube channel to get all of your daily Monday through Friday episodes. We thank you for making us your first listen every day because we're your team every day. All right, Steelers fans, let's get into this schedule reveal. You probably saw it last night, all the different videos. The Steelers had a Bigfoot search video. I thought that was different, but okay, whatever. But let's get into the different factors here. Now, I'm going to summarize my overall points of this episode up front of a good, a bad, and an ugly sentiment here. I think the good for the Steelers in this schedule is the fact that they are starting, the teams that they're starting off with are all going to be new quarterbacks or young quarterbacks in the first quarter of the season before they hit their Week 5 bye. The bad of this is kind of that middle ground after the bye week, the fact that the bye week's so early and some of the schedules they have for those middle of the season divisional opponents. And then the ugly is going to be the end of the season, which looks like it could be rough. And we'll get to those stage by stage in this episode. But let's take it one step at a time. Let's get into the start of the season. First, let's put the full schedule on screen here. So looking at the way that this shapes out, you look at at weeks 1 through 4, you starting on the road at the Jets, at home against the Seahawks, on the road at the Patriots, and then you get your Ireland game against the Vikings, which counts as a home game since the Steelers are typically the hosts of that game before your Week 5 bye week. That start to the season, to me, gives the Steelers multiple ways to take advantage of teams that are going to be figuring things out. You look at those teams and who they are. The Jets, Justin Fields, what he's going to be able to do with a new offense, with a new head coach. That's a team that's going to be trying to figure things out early in the season. That's a team that's going to have a lot of young players on both sides of the ball. That's a team that the Steelers, if they come out hitting the ground running, their defense playing at a high level like they have the past several years, that's a team that you can kind of get right against. Limit to small gains on offense, whether you have Aaron Rodgers or Mason Rudolph, that you could try to put up enough points, let your defense win the day. That's a game that, much like how the Falcons were last year, the Steelers could come out, control the pace of that game, and be on their way. Now, it also shapes up to be a physical game because if you look at the Jets, they've made the offensive line investments much like the Steelers have. Granted, they've also had a higher picks to do so with. When you look at guys that they've been drafting over the past few years, Armand Membao, Olu Fashanu, Joe Tippmann, the guys that they got Elijah Vera Tucker, guys that they've been invested. They've invested heavily into their offensive line. They also have an athletic running back in Breece Hall, and now you have Justin Fields. That's going to be a physical front. So it'll be a good early test of this Steelers run defense that they've been investing into to see how much have they been able to grow in one off season with the additions of Derek Harmon, Y.A. Black, and seeing how this team has formed against that's the very thing that really ended their season last year, which is that they could not stop the run against the Ravens late last season. So despite that part of the matchup without being a testing, the fact that you're facing Justin Fields with a new team and a new head coach, that could be something that plays to your advantage. Then you go to the next week, you go to Sam Darnold going to the Seahawks, and they're coming to Pittsburgh from the West Coast to the East Coast. This will be his second game with his new team. That's another opportunity where I think that there's something there for the Steelers. Sam Darnold, I said this all last year. You can remember me here on the show. I talked about it on national shows. I never bought the Sam Darnold hype of him being a quarterback in Minnesota. I was always on the train that, look, Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison are some bad dudes, and they're definitely carrying that team, and we saw that as the year played out. Sam Darnold in Seattle, now they really have, Jackson Smith and Jigba. They have Kenneth Walker, I think, is really talented at running back. I think that's another opportunity to take advantage of a quarterback in a new system that might be overpaid for where he is. And then you get back-to-back weeks against young quarterbacks. Drake May with the Patriots on the road in Foxborough at 1 p.m. on a Sunday, and then you get J.J. McCarthy and the Vikings in Ireland for that game. Now, I do think it's important to note, of all the teams this year that are on the Steelers schedule, the only team that Mike Tomlin has a losing record lifetime against is the New England Patriots. And what's crazy about that is he has more wins against Tom Brady than he has against non-Tom Brady quarterbacks, which is stupid when you think about it. Like, how is that even possible? But the fact that in the 2 times that they faced off against the Patriots since Tom Brady's been retired, has it been 3 times? It's at least 2 times. They've lost both those contests, and granted, yes, part of that was the state of the quarterback situation for the Steelers in as well wasn't great in those games. But this is another opportunity for the Steelers to get right in playing there. They have not won in Foxborough in a very long time, so that'll be interesting. But it's still a young quarterback that'll be getting used to a new head coach in Mike Vrabel there. Mike Tomlin never lost to Mike Vrabel in all his years with the Titans. Could be interesting there. And then you go play the Vikings, where if you're a Steelers fan and you remember that 2013 season and you just remember how bad it was when they were 0-3 headed to play the Vikings in London that year, and they lost that game. It went 0-4. Granted, they did rebound for an 8-8 season that year. That was just there's a lot of PTSD going into the international games there. So that's the good part right there. I do think that this could work to their advantage, playing 2 new quarterbacks to their teams and 2 young quarterbacks to their teams, because I also think that that all 4 of these teams are kind of in an interesting spot where I think the Vikings still could be a dangerous team. They were a dangerous team last year with 14 wins. But I also think that they could do some first step backwards. I haven't been a big J.J. McCarthy guy. Maybe he turns out to be the guy, but I think that'd be a perfect time to pounce on him as early in the season. Justin Fields, Sam Darnold. I think Justin Fields in the right system could work. If the Jets have the right system and Aaron Glenn as a head coach helps set that up, good for him. And I think that there's a chance there. But this is also the Jets as an organization. They've had a hard time for the last several decades of being able to put anything together that's coherent. So opportunities there. And again, not believing as much as Sam Darnold. Those first 4 games, there is an opportunity for if the Steelers at least come away 3-1 there, head into their bye week. That's a good way to start the season. But it's definitely going to be needed, because this middle part of the season starts to get a little tricky with how they're setting these games up and what things they're going to be asking the Steelers to do, particularly with those week 6 and 7 games against the Browns and the Bengals and how they're asking them to play those games out. We'll talk more about how the rest of the schedule plays out in a second here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. But first, I remind you the show is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, the #1 sportsbook in America. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live during the action. With player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever before to play smart and win big. Between Anthony Edwards, Nikola Jokic, SGA, Jalen Brunson, and Tyrese Halliburton, there's so many stars to give you your best shot at hitting a same-game parlay. And if you're new to FanDuel, you can win $200 in bonus bets if you hit on your first bet of $5 or more. It's a great deal to take advantage of during the NBA playoffs. Again, if you're new to FanDuel, sign up at FanDuel.com, and when you place your first bet of $5 or more, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment more with FanDuel, official sportsbook betting partner of the NBA. We're back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast. Chris Carter here breaking down the Steelers schedule release and the pros and cons of it. We went through the good, which I think is the start of the season for the Steelers. The bad could be what happens right after that start, though, because the Steelers do get to play at home against the Browns coming out of their bye. That could be really beneficial. The Browns, I don't think, will be too good of a team this year. If I was to pick right now, I think I'd still have them finishing last in the division. Maybe they'll have Kenny Pickett starting. Maybe they have Joe Flacco starting. Whatever it is, they'll get to play the Browns in Pittsburgh coming off a bye. That'll be an opportunity for the Steelers, certainly to cash in on. In that situation. If the Steelers are able to are able to win that game. And again, they go 3-1 in those first 4 games. All of a sudden, you're 4-1 to start the season. That's ideally where you want to start there. Also, in that game, you're looking at the Browns. Where will they be as a team? When you look at how they're set to play. Also, when you look at how their season could play out, when they do play the Steelers, they'll be coming off of playing in London against the Vikings the week before. So where the Steelers are playing them in week 4, the Browns are playing them in week 5. So they're coming off an overseas trip against what should be an interesting team for them to play. Again, I'm not sure if the Vikings will be the same 14-win team as they were last year, but they do have talent on them, and that could be a tough sell for them coming off of a London trip, going into a road game against the Steelers. But then that's where it starts to get a little funky, because then the Steelers have that very short week to play the Bengals in Cincinnati, and we all know teams in the NFL struggle in large when they are playing on the road on a short week on a Thursday, going on the road to a divisional opponent. And the Steelers experienced that last year when it was the reverse of these games after they beat the Bengals on the road, and then they had to go on the road to play the Browns. And then they lost at the Browns in close fashion, but still, it was just a wild, wacky, random game the way that game played out. The Bengals are a team where you're expecting them to still be dangerous with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins. I still think the Bengals have a lot to prove when it comes to this offensive line. I think that they have to protect their quarterback more. I think they have to run the ball better, and I don't think that they've made the proper investments there to fix that problem. I also think the defense is going to take a step back. Trey Hendrickson led the NFL in sacks last year, and right now it seems like he's an unhappy camper who doesn't want to be around and will probably get traded at some point. It's why they drafted Shamar Stewart. I think Shamar Stewart's a heck of an athlete, but I think that he is a bit of a project to be ready for day one as the starter to replace Trey Hendrickson. So maybe if the Steelers can win their first ever road divisional Thursday night play, road divisional Thursday night game against the Bengals, that would be huge. But at this stage, it's tough to mark that up as a win because just track record, history-wise of most teams in the NFL, that is normally a loss. Now, the good thing for that is they do get 2 home games to follow that. They kind of get their mini bye after that, and they'll get to play the Packers Sunday night football in Pittsburgh. Jordan Love, maybe Aaron Rodgers is back by that point, and it's a revenge game for him as well. And then you get the Colts at home. Now, the Packers, I think, still have the potential to be a very good team. I would not sleep on them being a team that could rise up and actually challenge the Lions to win the division this year, because I really like Jordan Love. I like what they've been doing with adding their weapons. They've got Matthew Golden now. They've got Josh Jacobs. They have the other receivers that they've assembled. They also have a defensive front with guys like Kenny Clark, Rashawn Gary. I think that the Packers could be a dangerous team. Now, granted, Mike Tomlin has had very good success against the Packers when Aaron Rodgers isn't their quarterback. In fact, I think he's 4-2 all time. The only 2 losses he had were in 2021 when it was old man Ben Roethlisberger, and then, of course, in the Super Bowl when they lost in Super Bowl 45. But looking at this, that's a key opportunity for the Steelers. But it's 2 back-to-back franchise quarterbacks that they're playing in those weeks, and then you stay at home against the Colts. Now, the Colts historically were the punching bag for the Steelers under Mike Tomlin. They were a team that the Steelers dominated for many, many years. But when you look at what they've done since they've added Shane Steichen, the Steelers have lost back-to-back seasons against these teams, and also in tough ways. They've kind of been out of position. They've been getting beaten different ways. Now, the question is, though, were those just circumstantial to those years, and the fact that the Steelers were on the road, because the Steelers did have to go on the road, I think, for 3 straight games against the Colts in their back and forth. I don't think that's happened in any other team that they've faced where they've had to play a team 3 times in a row on the road, unless there was a playoff game involved. But that is an opportunity to get them in your house to handle your business there. I think that's a winnable game, but I think it's a lot closer to a toss-up because I still have to see this team be able to take down a Shane Steichen team. But I do think that's still a game that they should be able to win if their offensive line's playing well enough and their defense is still playing at top notch, and that helps them have that balanced offense. So again, if we're talking about a 3-1 start, you could beat the Browns, maybe you beat the Packers, maybe beat the Colts. So let's say they split let's say they lose the Bengals, they lose one of the first four, and they split between Colts and Packers. At that stage, you're talking about a team that maybe that's what 5-3 through the first 9 weeks. It's 5-3 through basically the first half of the season, on your way to being at that 10-7 pace that we've been talking about. But then it also continues to get tricky, because then after the Colts game, you do have another Sunday night football game, this one on the road against the Chargers. I have the Chargers being a very tough team this year. I think that people should not overlook that team as a potential to maybe win the AFC West. The Chiefs have been close to, petering out maybe a little bit from just being this super dominant team. I think the Chiefs will always be very good as long as Patrick Mahomes is in, but I would not look past Jim Harbaugh and what he's trying to build with the Chargers, taking root and actually making some progress this year, which makes that a tough game for the Steelers on the road. Granted, also the Chargers don't have the best home presence as far as crowds. That could very well be one of those games where we're sitting there Sunday Night Football and Al Michaels or whoever's doing Sunday Night Football these days is like, it's unbelievable how many Steelers fans are taking over the arena. And it happens anytime they go to the West Coast or Miami or Arizona or any place that has warm weather where Steelers fans have gotten old and retired to and built families at. So that does happen. But Chargers could be interesting at home against the Bengals. This to me feels like this could be the must win. If there's like a must win game that's a tough game on the schedule, this to me might be it. The Bengals Week 11 game on November 16th. And why you're probably saying, well, Chris, why'd you pick that one? Why not a Ravens game? Because I truly believe the Ravens, I had them as a Super Bowl favorite last year. I still have them as that this year. I think that they are on the cusp of breaking out. They're kind of like the Bills, right? Like it's between them and the Bills. Who's going to be that first team to knock the Chiefs off their block and to take control and get to the Super Bowl as a real Super Bowl contender? I think it's between those two teams. And funny enough, the Steelers play those teams in back-to-back weeks, and we'll get to that in the next segment. But if we're presuming the Steelers lose to the Bengals because it's a road, short week, Thursday night football game in Cincinnati against a divisional opponent that knows you very well, and you're coming off of playing a divisional opponent, it makes that next game a must-win. Because then if you're competing with the Bengals, you're probably competing with the Bengals for at least second in your division, and that's also probably for a wild card spot. That win right there might be the most important win for the Steelers to get as far as like the weight of how everything could play out in this playoff push. So if you win that game, then you go on the road. You play the Bears. It's tough for me to predict how the Bears are going to be with Ben Johnson as a head coach. I'm not so sure that he is this wizard that's going to just magically change everything around like some people believe. Caleb Williams does have a litany of wide receivers: DJ Moore, Roma Dunze, and they added Luther Burden. I'll be intrigued to see if that offense does take off. If it doesn't this year, and that turns into a game where the Steelers could find a way to win, then all of a sudden you're looking at now you're looking at, if you let's say they lose to the Chargers, but they find a way to win that important game against the Bengals, and they find a way to beat the Bears, then you're talking about 7-4 headed into your last 6 weeks. 7-4, not a bad place to be in. Again, if you just win your 3 of your last 6 games, that gets you back to 10-7. Probably puts you in the playoffs, at least get you in that hunt there, and get you back to where you were last year. And let's face it, the Steelers are not a team right now that are designed to be some 13-4 juggernaut team. Right now, you're trying to keep your continuity moving forward, take steps moving forward. The goal of this season is to make progress in the O-line, progress in the D-line, progress that shows, hey, we're building something for next year so that we have reason to believe that we don't have as many holes in this roster, and we can invest in just trading up, going and getting that quarterback, and that'll be the big piece that puts us over and gets us back into being one of those 12, 13-win teams that can be a perennial playoff threat in the next couple of years. That's where the key is there. But again, to me, it's going to start with getting through those first 12 weeks. If you can get 7 wins through those first 12 weeks, it's going to put it all on the line in the last 6. But you look at those last 6, and you're starting to have a little bit of PTSD because you're seeing some serious Super Bowl contenders in that mix. I want to talk about that gauntlet at the end of the season in the next segment here on the Locked On Steelers podcast. I'm your host, Chris Carter. Stick with us. We'll be right back. Back here in the Locked On Steelers podcast, Chris Carter here, breaking down the Steelers schedule full release that we've seen here. Now, let's get to that end of season gauntlet, because I don't think it's the same as the Steelers, where they had 5 straight games where just like, MVP level quarterbacks, Super Bowl caliber competing teams in a row. But it ain't easy either, because in these last 6 games, you have to play the Bills, who historically Mike Tomlin was doing well against until Josh Allen became their quarterback. Since then, he's been 1-4. He was 4-0 against the Bills before Josh Allen. He's 1-4 since they've had Josh Allen when playing the Bills. And that's not going to be an easy matchup. They're another team that's among those Super Bowl favorites. You at least get them at home this time instead of in Buffalo, where they've had to play several times now. So maybe there's a chance there that you can catch them off guard. I think this will be the part of the season that'll be really interesting. But as I made a point in one of my points of it was a short video that I did as far as a quick reaction that probably went out on YouTube via Locked On. The big factor for how the Steelers could push through this end of the season much better than they did last season is they need the trenches to be that much better. They need the O-line specifically to be able to run block better, to push people around, to create space, and to allow that part of the offense to be something the Steelers can rely upon. That's the whole point of even having that kind of an offense, especially when you get into the December months, the December, January, to be able to run the ball, dominate the line of scrimmage, stuff the run, and be that kind of a team that wins there. And if you're able to do that, it helps negate the teams like the Bills that depend on high-level quarterback play, because you're taking the air out of the ball, you're taking time off of the time of possession, and limiting the amount of chances that they have with Josh Allen for him to be a playmaker. And if you're running the ball well, you're also putting up points on your own end if you're able to do that. So that's a big part of it. But of course, running the football and stuffing the run is most important when you play the team that really whooped you to the point that you needed to make these investments on the defensive side of the ball. And that's, of course, the Baltimore Ravens, which you play twice in the span of 5 weeks at the end of the season. Your first one coming off that Bills game. You go on the road to Baltimore on December 7th, a 1 p.m. kick. Also, I want everyone to say a prayer to whatever higher powers they believe in and thank them for the Steelers having no holiday games this year. Not because of any the Steelers do bad on. I don't care about that. I care about me. I care about being able to wake up and being able to just enjoy my holidays, eat some food, and actually get some rest. Clap your hands, stomp your feet. Thank the Lord for giving us sleep on a holiday, because I have just been so tired of covering holiday games. But anyways, 1 p.m. Ravens, December 7th. I think that's gonna be a tough game. They need you hope that you could split with the Ravens, but I think there's a benefit here from playing the Ravens this late in the season, because now you'll have given this offensive line that you've been investing into time to coalesce, time to figure things out. And if they can find their groove before this part of the season, and they're running the ball well, then you can start to be that team against the very team that you are hoping to be, that you've been building against to be that team. You could also, if that D front, that D line is playing well towards the end of the season, if they found their groove, if Derek Harmon and Y.A. Black and Keanu Benton are working well with Cam Hayward and T.J. Watt and Alex Highsmith and Nick Herbig and Jack Sawyer, if that front is being aggressive and they found their rhythm and it's taken them time to do so. Like if they haven't figured it out by week 6 when they played the Browns, maybe that's fine, because the Browns aren't that team like the Ravens. But if they figure it out by week 14 and they're playing the Ravens, that could be the thing that says, hey, they're headed in the right direction, and might be the thing that also says, hey, let's get back to dominating this rivalry. Because before those last 2 games at the end of the season, the Steelers had dominated the rivalry in the 4 years before that. The Steelers are still 7-3 against the Ravens in their last 10 meetings. If the Steelers don't want the Ravens to peel that back and to start evening that out or taking control of it, they've got to be able to show that their investments on both sides of the trenches are starting to work out. That's going to be huge as far as the storyline for next season. Then you get the Dolphins in December. While I don't like to overlook games, it's Monday Night Football. The Dolphins have been atrocious in cold weather months, and you're getting them cold weather in Pittsburgh. If you're the Steelers, you got that's a must-win game. Not because it's the biggest game of the season, but because you're going to have these gauntlet games in between, and you need to win at least that game to get yourself there. Because again, if we're just being moderately kind of situated for how the Steelers handle the first 12 weeks of the season. Let's say they go 7-4 heading into that. They need to win at least 3 games to get to 10 wins. That Dolphins game ultimately is most likely one of those 3 games they have to have, because it's tough to think that they're going to sweep the Ravens and beat the Bills or the Lions. So, I think that's going to be that's a lot to ask there. So the Dolphins become, in my opinion, a must-win game. I still say the Bengals is the most pivotal game of the season there, because it's right in the middle. And if they lose that first Bengals game, they'll need to win the second one at home. But you get the Dolphins at home, and then you go on the road on that short week to the Lions, December 21st, 4:25 kickoff. That does not look like an easy game. The Lions are another one of my Super Bowl favorites. I think last year I picked the Lions and the Ravens to meet in the Super Bowl. I might pick that again this year based off the way these two teams are built. As long as Aiden Hutchinson doesn't go down, I think the Lions could be a supreme threat. They are one of the more complete rosters in the NFL. I would not be shocked if the Steelers lost this game and lost it handily, because I think that the Lions are like how I said last year when I was previewing Steelers-Eagles, and I was saying, hey, I think the Eagles are going to win and probably win convincingly because the Eagles' offensive line is kind of what the Steelers want to be in 3 years. The Lions' offensive line is also what the Steelers want to be in 3 years' time. I think that that's another situation where they have that, and they have guys on defense to play really well, and they have a good quarterback, and they have a system that they're used to. So, granted, they'll have a new offensive coordinator. I think that'll be plug and play though. I would pencil that. That's one game that personally I'm penciling in for a loss for the Steelers already at this point. So if you have that, then you go on the road to play the Browns. Crazy enough, no one has swept anyone in the Steelers-Browns rivalry since 2017. And when I looked that up, I was like, wait a second, that can't be true. The Steelers and Browns have split every single year since 2017, which is quite some time. Now, it's a testament also to the fact that the Browns have come up. The drafting of Myles Garrett. They had Baker Mayfield for a little bit, and they were a different team. But I think it's also a state of like, hey, this is when the Steelers don't have a dominant quarterback or a franchise quarterback in play, it's tougher to beat your division rivals consistently, because that's what Ben Roethlisberger did almost every single year as a ritual. I mean, it was the thing that he was the quarterback with the most wins in their stadium until Baker Mayfield broke it in like his last year with the team. So, this could be a big chance for the Steelers if you get that win there, where the Steelers, and that's another thing, if you sweep the Browns this year, it's another big boost to trying to get to that 10-win mark. Because then at that point, if you beat the Browns late in the season here, and you've beaten the Dolphins, those are your 2 wins. That gets you to 9 wins if we're hanging on to the 7-4 record through the first 11 games in the first 12 weeks. Then all you have to do is steal one of these games against the 2 games against the Ravens. Of course, they finish the season at home against the Ravens. Time will be determined on that game, because the NFL likes to flex the last week of the last game of the year, because they need to know how those schedules are playing out and who's the most important games and which one get the best primetime odds, all that, right? So, but again, if you get 7 wins in those first 11 games, and again, we're saying like maybe the Jets, Seahawks, Vikings, Browns, Colts, Bengals, Bears. So that's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yes, that's 7. That's 7-ish wins right there that you're talking about in the first 11 games. And if you're able to beat the Dolphins and the Browns in those last 6 weeks, then you're in the spot where you could say, hey, Ravens, you guys split because you guys know each other so well. Or you get that crazy upset like they've had before when they've beaten Josh Allen and the Bills, or maybe they catch the Lions in an off week. Who knows? But that could be the ticket there if they want to get back to at least 10 wins. I think it's handling your business early, at least going 3-1 in the first 4 games, and then in that next stretch of 7 games from the bye week until that week 13 matchup with the Bills that starts the Gauntlet. You probably want to win at least 4 of those 7 there. Maybe winning just the home games even would be huge for the Steelers in that stretch. So lots to play with there. But I do think this is not a killer schedule on the Steelers. There is a good, bad, and ugly. Again, the good is the start that we're looking at there. I'd say the bad is just the having to play a divisional opponent and then another one on the road on a short week. That's a little rough there, and maybe some of the circumstances that they're going to have to go through in the middle part of the season. But the ugly is that gauntlet at the end of the season where you're going to play basically 4 games in the last 6 weeks against teams that are Super Bowl favorites when you're looking at who you might have to go up against. So are they more equipped to survive that? I think the biggest question to determine that will they succeed in developing the trenches on both sides of the ball? Because again, as I said earlier this week when we talked about Arthur Smith, what's his top priority? Arthur Smith's top priority this year is to get that run game going and to get that offensive line dominant. Again, they don't have to be a top 10 unit, but if they're like just outside that top 10 area, that could be the key to saying, hey, they're on the right trajectory. They're a much better team at running the football. They'll have that 1-2 punch at Jaylen Warren, Caleb Johnson, and maybe a few other guys. Who knows? But they'll have that available to them, and that'll be part of their identity. Because remember, that's not what the Steelers had down the stretch last season. That's what they were designed to be, and that's a big part of why they fell apart at the end of the season, because they were supposed to be a team that could develop into running the football, and they couldn't. And then not only could they not run the football, they couldn't stop the run consistently at the end of the season. If those two factors are present in the end of the season, I see this gauntlet at the end of the season going differently this year. But again, those are big ifs. They have to achieve them. We got to see Broderick Jones take a step forward. We still haven't seen Troy Fautanu play. We got to see Zach Frazier, Mason McCormick take steps forward. We got to see how Derek Harmon plays as a rookie. Will Y.A. Black factor in at all? Can Keanu Benton do better against double teams? Does T.J. Watt and Cam Hayward get back to their crazy chemistry? All those factors, Alex Highsmith, everybody involved. If they're able to achieve those things on both sides of the ball there, I like their chances of getting back to that record of 10-7, maybe even taking a swing at getting 11-6. I don't think the schedule is impossible. I don't think this is an unfair schedule for the Steelers, but it's also not a weak schedule either. As we talked with Mike DeFabo yesterday, there's no cupcake on this schedule, right? And that's the thing. When I'm penciling in wins, it's not because I think these guys are easy. It's just looking at if you're going to assume the Steelers are playing at the level that they have been playing at the last several years. These are the games that normally I would expect them to win in those situations. So can they get there? That's something that's gonna take time to see. But again, you're good, bad, and you're ugly. The start is good. The middle can be a little bit bad with the way that they've set up some of those division games. But then the ugly is that gauntlet. Can they get the strength on both sides of the ball, whether it's offensive line or defensive line or both, to be able to withstand the gauntlet at the end of the season, steal some wins, and get yourself back in the playoffs? You do that. If you find a way to do that, and then all at the end of the season, you're saying, hey, you know what? Sure, this was another 10-win season, and you weren't some major Super Bowl threat, but at the end of the season, you did beat the Ravens, and you did beat the Bills, or you did beat the Ravens, you did beat the Lions. Those are Super Bowl caliber teams, and you did it without your franchise quarterback that you're probably picking in this upcoming draft, and you were able to run the ball, and there are things that can carry over moving forward. That can be a different note heading into next season than what you had this season, where you were like, hey, we liked some of the things we did early in the season, but ultimately the offensive line caved at the end of the year, and we need to see progress from them. All those things could be very important to how this Steelers schedule plays out moving forward. So let me know. What do you think is the craziest part of the schedule? Is that an end of the season gauntlet? Is it worse than last year? Better than last year? Give me your thoughts in the comments section on YouTube, or tweet at me at Carter Critiques. You can also hit me up on all my social medias at Carter Critiques. So Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, Blue Sky. All the social media, same handle everywhere at Carter Critiques. You can read my work at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, post-gazette.com, and you can find me here on the Locked On Steelers podcast every day, Monday through Friday, breaking down your Pittsburgh Steelers. Back here tomorrow with Jenna Harner, breaking down other elements of the Steelers right here on the Locked On Steelers podcast.